What's up? This is Hoppe Hour. I am your host, Ryan Hoppe, and I'm very excited about my next guest. On the phone line is Phoenix radio legend Dave Pratt. What's up, man?
Hoppe Hour!
I love that.
How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm so excited to have you on. First of all, one of my radio mentors is Fred from The Fred Show on 103.5 KISS FM, syndicated in different markets. And I grew up listening to him in Chicago. And he's from Phoenix, and he is like a huge Phoenix Suns fan. He loves Phoenix culture. And he told me when I told him that I was going to be interviewing you that you're one of his main influences for going into radio. And in the 80s and 90s, he listened to you every morning.
Oh, I knew I had a listener. That's very humbling. And tell Fred thank you for me. And Ryan, if you grew up in Chicago, you grew up with some of the best radio in the entire nation.
I was listening to Eddie and Jobo, Mancow, Brandmeier. I was into all of that. It was a very good era. What do you think happened to radio?
Well, technology always wins. Technology always takes over. There's a reason that Blockbuster is closed. Nobody's buying VHS tapes or using VCRs anymore. Technology always moves forward and old technology dies. And radio, as much as I love it, and it sounds like you love it.
Yeah, I love it.
It's old technology anymore to hear our favorite song. We don't need the radio, and we don't need to listen through 10-minute commercial breaks and traffic and weather together. All we need to do is download any song we want. In fact, a lot of record companies, they don't even service radio anymore. They don't care. That's not where the business is. It used to be that in radio, record companies were always stopping by with their reps and kissing our ass to play music for them and play their groups and buying us lunch and getting us backstage at every show to try to schmooze us and booze us. They don't care anymore. It's all about digital. It's all about downloads. It's all about what you can sell with a couple clicks of your keyboard. That's where we're at today. Everything in media today is in the palm of our hand. Radio's just not necessary. It's not that people don't love radio or have great memories of it like you and I do. It's just outdated. That's all.
I have this weird, I don't want to say bitterness about podcasts because I host a podcast, but I've also been in radio for over a decade, and I'm on podcast radio through Beasley. So I'm a radio show in a podcast. But the thing about it, Dave, is Joe Rogan really changed the game where he made people think that anybody could do a podcast. Because of his laid-back approach, it kind of created this culture where every comedian was like, oh, I can do a podcast.
Well, with podcasting, anybody can do a podcast, but can they do it well, and can they monetize? That's the question. In the days of radio, the reason personalities miss radio so much is every 2 weeks they would be handed a paycheck.
Yeah.
And every contract they'd be handed, the big personalities would be handed a big bonus. And then they would go out on the weekends or whatever and do an appearance at a car dealership and get another big check. And then they would talk about their favorite endorsement and get another check. The money was just free flowing, and they really didn't have to sell it.
Yeah.
They didn't have to monetize it themselves. They were just the product. Well, for me anyway, that was really easy. I mean, I had salespeople doing all the work for me, and all I would do is be a personality, tell a few jokes, little song, dance, seltzer down the pants, take my check, and go home. Podcasting is a different animal. A lot of people can do podcasts, but few people, especially personalities from radio, know how to sell. They don't understand the business of podcasting. So a lot of people do podcasting for hobbies or whatever, but the big ones monetize it and they know how to sell. That's the difference between pros and amateurs. Pros get paid. So when you look at somebody like Joe Rogan, that's an unfair playing field, because what you don't see is that Joe Rogan looks very casual, like he's just kind of hanging out with his buddies doing a podcast. It's not true. Behind the scenes, every show is planned. There's a full sales staff. There's engineers. There's distribution specialists. There's marketing specialists, PR people. There's a machine that most don't have. But if Joe had to go out and sell the podcast himself without his early affiliation with Dana White and others, it would have been a different ballgame. Most people don't have those resources. They don't have those advantages. So somebody doing a podcast today, especially if they're not with the radio station, they have to sell their podcast.
Well, and
that's where the difference is.
The thing too is Joe Rogan in a way came from radio because he has said a million times, and he's had Anthony Cumia and he had Opie on. He said that because I grew up listening to Opie and Anthony when they were syndicated, and he said that going on Opie and Anthony and that sort of format they did, that made him want to do that with a podcast. So even Joe Rogan was influenced by radio.
Oh, God, there's no doubt that radio is a huge influencer, but that doesn't mean that it's current technology.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
I mean, the Model T was a huge influencer on automobiles. It doesn't mean I want to take it on I-10.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. I've had an interesting career because I graduated high school in 2012 and I got into radio right as it was essentially dying, and now we're in kind of the new universe of going into podcasts. And when you had your last radio job end, was there a part of you that said oh well, this is it?
Oh, I was sad because I was one of the few that faced reality and saw the numbers. What happens, Ryan, is a lot of people in radio, they love it so much.
Yeah.
And that 2-week check keeps coming in. They just don't want to admit that it's going away. They can't admit that to themselves. So what they do is the worst thing of all. They become desperate and they hang on, which means when corporate entities come to them on the next contract and the corporate entity tells them, we love you so much. We love your show. We love having you here.
Yeah.
We want you to stay. However, we need you to do it at this amount. And then they cut the pay. Well, most personalities go, that sucks, but okay, because they don't know where else to go.
Yeah.
They don't know how to support themselves. They've never sold. They don't understand the business. They're at the beck and call of these big corporate entities and corporate broadcasting companies calling the shots. They don't know what else to do. They're subservient. I was the opposite. In 2008, when the economy went down and when CBS cut their biggest personalities, if you had an extra zero on your check, you were done. I don't care who you were. Could be me, could be Stern, could be whoever. You're done.
That's what happened to Eddie and Jobo in Chicago, and it broke my heart.
Yep, you were done. I was the only one in Phoenix, so it was kind of surprising in Phoenix. But at that point, I had a decision to make. Yeah, I had other morning show offers and syndicated stuff and blah, blah, blah. Local television shows wanted me to host their stuff. I had all that stuff. And I was grateful for it, but it was at a huge pay cut. So I had to question myself. Do you want to be subservient? Do you want to be a monkey dancing for the organ grinder with broadcast media? Or you want to be a little bit of a rebel and go off and do your own thing? And I was one of the few that said, screw it. I'm out. I'm going to do my own thing. And I invested in myself and invested in this new thing called the internet. What a concept. I had a feeling it was going to be pretty successful. I didn't see it as that big of a risk. But this was the difference, Ryan. Most radio people that wanted to get into podcasting, they would hold on to the side of the pool and try to swim. It's impossible. So they wanted to still get the radio paycheck, but dabble in podcasting. Well, then you're not playing with any urgency. You're not playing with any desperation. And they failed. But I was the opposite. I said, nope, I'm jumping in the middle of the pool, and I'll sink or swim, and I'll put my own money into it. That was 16 years ago, and if you know the story, it turned out really well.
And what is the story for people that don't know?
So I'm a longtime radio and television personality in Phoenix. Also did some national stuff here and there. but I always chose to live in Phoenix, and not to age myself, but to age myself. In those days, you couldn't do syndicated radio from pretty much wherever you wanted. The big syndicates wanted you to be in Los Angeles, Chicago, New York, maybe Dallas, maybe San Francisco. And I didn't want to leave Arizona, never did. So I stayed here and I chose to stay local. When I got out of radio in 2008 and decided to make the decision that I just explained to you, we decided to do a podcast on my own, but we were going to do it right. It wasn't going to be from a basement or a kitchen or a business conference room. We bought, with the money I had made from media, Boardwalk and Park Place here in Arizona.
Yeah.
Called Scottsdale, Arizona. I told my crew to come with me and have trust with me. And that was a big chance for them too. And I said, I want you to buy the most expensive property in the whole city. And they said, what? I said, I want you to go out. I want you to rent the most expensive property in the whole city that overlooks Paradise Valley, which is our heaven, and Scottsdale. And they said, why? I said, because I want to play up. For anybody that comes by, I want them to see that we're not amateurs. We're going to bring this thing called podcasting to the top. We're going to do pro podcasting. And if we can monetize it with my show, then we built a new monster. We built Frankenstein. So within a couple months, my podcast, because I'm a salesman by trade, started to make really good money. Then we opened the door for other podcasts, and by the end of the year, Ryan, we had 200 podcasters paying us to produce and distribute their shows.
That's awesome.
And
do you have any like remote shows that aren't there, or is it just in person?
Oh, no, we have shows from all over. So, I don't know. Probably the majority of our shows are from Arizona, but we have barbecue shows from North Carolina, travel shows from London, change of the dollar money shows from Canada, entertainment shows from Hollywood. The other day, somebody did a show from the world's largest cruise ship in the port of San Juan, Puerto Rico.
Oh,
we
wow.
have shows everywhere. We have military shows from Air Force bases in Germany. And anyway, by the end of that first year, we had over 200 podcasts all paying us to distribute and produce their shows, and it turned into quite a business. So we started renting more and more space. And shortly after that, a lot of the clients that we were doing podcasts for were large businesses. And they said, Dave, we love the way you guys cook the food. We love the way you guys handle our business. We just wish you did. And then fill in the blank, Ryan. Dave, we just wish you guys did media buying. We wish you did social network management. We wish you did graphics. We wish you did commercial production. We wish you did public relations, on and on. So I said to my crew, look, we can get a couple big retainers, then we'll go in the agency direction. And we did. We kept the network, which is still going today, and we started a full marketing agency, and that exploded. That's been really good for us. That's the mothership now, and that was 16 years ago, and that's where we are now.
Now, have you ever gotten any offers to go back to radio, but you just kind of like declined since then?
Every week. And I'm blessed to say that, and I hope that doesn't sound uppity. I don't mean it to. I'm very humbled, and I'm always grateful. Every week, you name it.
What are some of your favorite memories at KUPD? Are there any like memories that stand out when I ask that?
Oh, so many, Ryan. I mean, you're talking about a long career from, Jonathan Brandmeier, who you mentioned, was one of my first competitors, but also respected each other.
What is he like? Have you ever met him?
I don't know him.
Yeah.
But we competed for a short time. I was on my way up. He was on his way out to Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
So in all fairness to Johnny, his mind was on Chicago. He's from Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. He wanted to get back to the Midwest. You know his story. Phoenix wasn't in his heart, but it is mine. So I don't think he minded. I think he probably, loved passing the baton, which I took, and we were off and rolling. But just like you grew up with those guys in Chicago, I also had a band here in Arizona, and we were playing the Coliseum. We were playing stadiums, and bands like Blue Oyster Cult and Bad Company and Cheap Trick were opening for us.
Oh, nice.
It was insane. We sold more albums than any band in the history of Arizona.
What was the biggest crowd you had? And what is it like performing in front of that many people? Because I've never performed in front of people. I've talked to millions of people on the radio, but it just feels like I'm talking to a coworker when I do that. So.
Well, two different things. One is just going on stage as, the morning guy. Love me or hate me. I was the face of mornings here for many years. So when anybody would come in town, from the Rolling Stones to whoever, Motley Crue, Van Halen, I was the guy on stage.
Yeah. Later
in country, did the same thing. So that's just walking out, kind of greeting the crowd, getting everybody fired up, get kind of used to that. As far as the band, we started very humble, and then it hit quick, and it hit before I was ready, Ryan.
Really?
I wasn't talented enough to keep up with the image when I was really young because it exploded so fast. James Brown was on my show, and we were promoting the movie The Blues Brothers.
Oh, wow.
And I told James Brown that I didn't really understand what the big deal was about him because it's not that hard to dance around on stage and sing. I didn't really see what he did as special. And he was laughing. He goes, "Nobody's really ever talked to me like that." I said, "I'm just telling you the truth. I don't see the big deal. You're not that great a singer, and okay, you can do the splits." And he said, "Then why don't you do it?" So I said, "Okay, I will." And he goes, "What?" I said, "I will, if you promise to come back and see us." So he started laughing because he'd never had an interview like this. And I said, "James, I want you to name our band." He goes, "I don't know." He goes, "How about Dave Pratt and the I Feel Good Band? That's one of my songs." I said, "No, it's stupid." And he goes, "Well, I have a song called Fall Down, Kiss Myself, I'm a Sex Machine." I said, "Well, that's it, James. We're Dave Pratt and the Sex Machine Band." So that's how we started it. And yeah, we were playing stadiums and coliseums. It was nuts. I'm a small town kid, Ryan. Come from a small town up in the northeast corner of Nevada called Elko, E-L-K-O. So this wasn't in my blood. It wasn't in my DNA. So I was nervous as hell. I don't sing. I don't have any musical ability, but yet I wrote 90 songs, and here I was leading a band on stage. It was pretty insane. First time I went out in front of a big crowd, I thought, I definitely don't want to go out there and just sing. So let's distract them. So I got the Sun's Gorilla, and I ran out on stage, and I hit a trampoline, and it shot myself into the crowd. Then started what's called the Pratt Pass, and I did everything I could just to entertain the crowd, and that's what made the band bigger and bigger and bigger.
Now, what are some of your favorite memories of performing out and doing music? Was there like one show that was really crazy?
Well, standing on the side of the stage, watching some of the artists who I loved the most growing up open for our band was pretty surreal. And once they got the joke, and then I would be performing and they would pop out on stage and start performing with us, that was really strange because I had grown up loving these bands. But they got the humor, and that made me feel really good. So a lot of these bigger bands that I tell you about, when they were contracted to open up for this group called Dave Pratt and the Sex Machine Band, they didn't get it. They're like, "What? Why are we opening?" And our managers would always say, "You'll see, you'll see, you'll see." And then they would come out on stage after getting the humor and be part of the joke. It was Spinal Tap on steroids. It was great.
Now, you were on the same station as Howard Stern. Do you have a relationship with the guy?
I don't. I was on the same station later in my career, so 20 years at KUPD. And then I left KUPD because it changed ownership and it sucked. KUPD was locally owned for years, and it was awesome. That's when radio actually cared.
Yeah.
And when they sold, it just became a widget. and I didn't have any interest in staying, so I just took the highest offer, and CBS made a crazy offer. So I went there because they were all the same then. KUPD wasn't any different than anybody else. So when I went over to the news station, Howard was going to do mornings on that station. He was previously my competitor, and he was already doing mornings because Howard couldn't change his time, so I did afternoons. And we played back and forth a lot. We had fun. I would have all his characters in studio, and he was very kind to me on the air. But no, we never hung out, anything like that.
Now, what was
I know that I always respected him, and I hope that he had mutual respect. But truth is, Ryan, I was small in his world, you know?
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of a guy that I respect him and I listen to him, but he's definitely someone that doesn't hang out with a lot of people. You know what I mean?
I don't know. And tell you the truth, if he wanted to, I probably wouldn't have accepted the invite because I'm just not that guy. I never cared that much. I've never been starstruck or really wanted to hang out with anybody in the business. I've always kind of done my gig and just gone home. It's just who I am. No insult to anybody. But I never tried to hang out with him. I imagine if I would have called him or been to New York, I would hope that he would have accepted the invite, but I don't know. Maybe not. I was small, Ryan, in his world. He's probably, well, I do credit him with changing the face of radio and the culture of our industry. He changed everything. There wouldn't be a Joe Rogan without a Howard Stern.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
He changed everything, and I give him a ton of credit. But the question is, what did he sacrifice to get it?
A lot.
His first marriage, his family. I never wanted to be that guy. And again, no offense to Howard. If his goal was his career, his overall goal, man, did he hit the jackpot. But that's never been my number one priority.
What do you think of people that say that he copied Steve Dahl?
No, I would disagree with that. I think Howard is 100 times more talented than Steve Dahl. Steve Dahl, I give him credit for what he did. But Steve Dahl was just a beneficiary of the time. He was on the right station at the right time. And I give Steve Dahl credit because he had the balls to do what others didn't, including Comiskey Park, Disco Demolition. But he was the beneficiary of the times, and he carried that torch well. And I give him all the credit for that. But no, he's not even in the same ballpark as Howard. Yeah, not even close. The reason people compare him is Steve's from a huge city, Chicago, which is a game changer for radio. Chicago's always had an incredible influence on radio. And Howard's in New York, so people try to compare. I've even heard people compare like Rick Dees with Howard Stern. I'm like, no. Are you kidding me? This is not even, you're not even in the same ballpark.
Now, I was younger when Mancow's Morning Madhouse ruled Chicago, and it was the craziest stuff to ever reach my ear. Did you have a beef with him ever? It's funny. A lot of radio people don't like the guy, and he was even kind of rude to me in DM when I asked him if he wanted to call in. He's like, could I call in? Yes. Do I want to call in? That's a different answer. So, like, I have a love-hate with the guy, but he definitely was a unique character because I know that he was on in Phoenix at one point.
I don't remember him ever being on here.
Oh,
if
really?
He did. He didn't make much of an impact. I don't ever remember him being here. It's like people tell me that Glenn Beck was here. I don't remember him either. I mean, so they must not have made much noise. I remember Eric Mancow when he was in the Bay Area. That's the first time I had ever heard of him. And then, I don't know, I just always felt like Mancow was kind of a crock pot of all the great personalities. And what I mean by that, if you know what, that he would take a little bit from Stern, he'd take a little bit from Dahl, he'd take a little bit from Pratt, he'd take a little bit from the Grease Man, and he was talented enough to mix it all together and deliver soup. But what he did wasn't really anything new or groundbreaking.
I find the Grease Man fascinating. I've listened to a lot of his old shows online. He was definitely one of a kind. Grease
Man was awesome. He was fun. So at one point, a magazine that would come out, a paper that would come out for the industry, Radio and Records, was very influential. So was Billboard magazine. And they were the first ones to refer to me and Howard and Greaseman as shock jocks. This is early 80s. But they referred to us with the name shock jocks. That's where it came from.
Yeah, really?
And yeah, as far as I know, that's where it came from. It's the first time I ever heard it. And during that time, it was an interesting time in radio because Howard, keep in mind, wasn't syndicated yet. Howard was in one market. Greaseman was in D.C. I was the young guy in Phoenix. So what's the difference between those three? Well, in my opinion, just my humble opinion, Howard has more raw talent than any of us. But Greaseman had a backbone that you couldn't believe. He was just funny. I just loved him. And for me, I just kind of worked hard, you know? So I was flattered to be in their company. But the difference with Howard was he was the first one to take syndication, to take the offer. I didn't want to leave Phoenix. I didn't want to live in New York. I was starting a family. I did not want to live in New York. I didn't want to be on MTV. I had those offers. I turned all that down. I didn't want to be in New York. I wanted to be in Phoenix, Arizona. I wanted to be part of the city as it grew. So I passed on those opportunities. Howard took it, and you saw what happened to him, and he deserves every bit of it.
Now, what are some of your favorite parts over the years about living in Phoenix?
Watching it grow, Ryan. When I came down here after high school in that small town in Nevada, it was 1979, and heck, I don't know what the population of the entire Metro Valley was. I don't know if you're familiar with the valley, but Phoenix is what they call it, but It's actually huge. There's Mesa and Tempe and Glendale.
Oh, really?
Scottsdale, and it's enormous. It's the second biggest land area in America behind Los Angeles. It's 60 miles across town in any direction. It's enormous, right? But when I moved down here, Metro Phoenix was probably around 700,000 or 800,000 people. Now it's, coming up on 5 million. So the market's changed a lot. When I came down here, the only two big sports were the Phoenix Suns and ASU football. Now, we're hosting national championships in every sport you can imagine. We're hosting Final Fours. We're hosting Super Bowls. Phoenix has changed incredibly from a 2-freeway system to now I think we have 14 freeways in town. Just watching it grow has been fascinating.
Now, what are some of your favorite memories of the Phoenix Suns? Because I'm a big Devin Booker fan.
Devin's great. I love that guy. And you want to talk about kind and community-oriented and just a poster boy for what we want a Phoenix Suns player to be. That's Devin Booker. God, I just respect him so much. But the early guys, Connie Hawkins is my all-time favorite player. And Connie Hawkins is worshipped here in Arizona. People literally pray to Connie Hawkins. And, of course, the Barkleys and the KJs and Steve Nashes through the Devin Bookers and the great players that we've been. Amari, gosh, that Amari Nash era was so much fun. So much fun. Yeah, Sean Marion. But yeah, I've been a Suns fan forever, season ticket holder since, day one. So.
Did you ever get to hang out with Kurt Warner?
Oh, yeah. So Kurt, his son goes to high school right around the corner from me. Super nice people.
Yeah.
Brenda as well. Very community-oriented, spiritual. Kurt's, I think one of the big successes for Kurt was always having a moral compass. The way that he handles himself. Have you ever met him, Ryan?
No, I want to, though. He's, I don't know. I just like his classiness, and I love underdogs because I'm kind of an underdog in life, and I just loved how he just was working at a grocery store to take care of his family. He just seems like a good dude, man.
The way that he handles himself, I'll give you a quick example. The high school that his son was playing for was playing our high school where my kids went. And our high school, of course, all the student section, they were all booing him, right? all booing him, getting on his son on the game. It's high school football. They're having fun. After the game, Kurt came over and started shaking hands with the opposing team, every player, taking his time with them, taking pictures with them, going into the crowd, saying hello to the parents, and his team lost. And he was saying hello to everybody. He's just a classy guy like that. I've never been on appearance with Kurt Warner to where he doesn't sign every autograph and stop and take time with every single person. Luis Gonzalez is the same way, Gonzo, who was on the Diamondbacks.
I met Gonzo when I did sports radio in Tampa, and man, for a guy of his fame, you would expect him to be cockier. He was just like one of the guys, man.
Nicest guy ever. So Gonzo is the godparent of my son, Sammy. And then, of course, the triplets. You know, we were all raised together. We've been friends forever. And just, we laugh because we have so many stories together. He got me my first massage up in Vegas. God, he was laughing. I'll never forget. We went to do that. We took a trip to Vegas. I've never laughed so hard in my life. He's really a funny guy. He's a practical joker, too.
What are some of the jokes he's done?
Well, Halloween was always a good one, to where he would dress as different superheroes, but they'd always wear a mask. Like one year he was Captain America, and Captain America, you know, he'd have the fake muscles, like he needed them, right? And we would go trick-or-treating in the neighborhood. He always thought it was funny because people thought it was just a kid too old to trick-or-treat, but it was me and Gonzo. We're going to all these houses and everything, and then once people found out it was him, all the kids in the neighborhood, then of course game was on, you know, and he was saying hi to everybody. He's just kind of a fun guy like that.
Now, I see on your LinkedIn that you also wrote a book. How long did that take, and what was the process like?
Oh, thank you, Ryan. And being a radio guy, I think that you really find that interesting. It's not just a Dave-centered kind of book. It tells stories about the industry and a lot of the stuff that you'll relate to. And any of your listeners that are huge fans of radio, I think that they'll really enjoy it. The hard copy came out in 2008, and it was released through Barnes & Noble and Borders and Amazon. It did very well. We gave every dime to charity. I'm a cancer survivor. And then we came out with the revised version of an audio book later that's free for everybody, and that's on our network. And I'm sure that you'll give them that URL during your show or after. But they can go to starworldwidenetworks.com and they can get the book for free. It was kind of therapeutic because when you write a book, if you want to do it right, you have to be accurate. So when I would tell a story, for example, I would contact people from that era to make sure that they have the same story I do. Is this the way you remember it? Is this the way you remember it? When Steven Tyler walked out on me, is this the way you remember it? This. So I was very proud when the book came out because it was a lot of work, but very accurate, very honest, and it was very well received. And the toughest part in the book, and I think that you would find the same thing to be true in your own life, Ryan, is you can write about other things that you've done, but when you start writing about personal stuff, maybe you've overcome a big health challenge, maybe you've gone through a tough relationship, whatever your story is, that's the toughest stuff to write about. But if you don't give that, if you don't give at least a good piece of your heart, then why are people reading your story?
Yeah, I've definitely, I would say my thing was like public breakups. That was, it kind of taught me that the next relationship I'll get into, I'm definitely going to keep more private. So I did the millennial thing of just putting up selfies all the time. And then when we broke up, they're like, everyone at Facebook's like, why don't you post pictures with them anymore? So I definitely learned, I see why some radio people are private.
Yeah, that's kind of tough. I've been married 37 years, so I've never really hit anything, but I've never led with it as well.
Yeah.
But it's kind of weird, you know, you put your heart into a book or something. Like my wife didn't want to read my book. And
really?
I don't know why. I'm sure she has her reasons. But sometimes it gets, when you tell a personal story, it's a little bit different. You don't want to be guarded because your readers deserve to know your story, but you also want to be very respectful to those that you love. So there's a balance there for sure.
Now, how much would it mean to you if you made it into the National Radio Hall of Fame?
Oh, I would be humbled beyond imagination. Not so much for me, but for my family. I think it would mean a lot to them. I'm in the Arizona stuff, the Hall of Fame here and all that,
Yeah.
and it's wonderful. It's just, again, to use the word humbling is not an exaggeration. And the national, when I get to, if I got to be in the same company as some of the greats that we've talked about, incredible, of course.
Was there ever an interview you had on your radio show with a famous person that went very wrong?
What do you mean by wrong?
I guess that's not the right word to use. Like, let's say a fight or they took something the wrong way.
Oh, yeah, Steven Tyler.
What
I
happened?
tell that story in my book. They came out with a book in 1996 called Walk This Way. And a good portion of the book was about coming back from drugs and having a second part of their career. There was early Aerosmith that was, the Toys in the Attic days, Walk This Way, that was incredibly successful. And then they did Walk This Way with Run DMC to hit a different audience, and they took a chance, and then they bounced back with Love in an Elevator and that era. And that's what the book was about, how to overcome challenges and walk this way. That's why it's named that. So I had the whole band in studio at one time on my show. And pretty much when you did Arizona, you kind of had to do my show, Ryan. I mean, there was no way around it, right? So every group you can imagine, every band you can imagine, everybody was in studio all the time. So I had the whole band in studio. And one of the first things I said was, congratulations on your book, guys, and tell us about overcoming drugs to have this incredible second part of your career. And Steven kind of looked at me with these steely eyes. And Joe kind of hit him on the arm. And then I think Tom Hamilton answered the question, and we got to the break. And Steven said, I don't want to talk about that. That's not what we're here for. And I said, well, no, that is what we're here for. It's your book. He goes, we got a concert tonight. And I said, that's great. We'll talk about that too. But this is what your book's about. And he goes, well, I don't want to talk about that. And I said, then we're done. Go ahead and leave.
Oh, my God. It's great.
So they kind of took off their headphones, and the other guys were like, Steven, come on. Which led me to the feeling of, this probably happened a couple times before, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And then Steven looked at me and he goes, you got a lot of balls, man. After all the years, you've got a lot of balls. And then he looked at me and he kind of smiled. He goes, I like you, man. I like you. But there's stories like that in the book. And there's been stuff that's broken out. God, I've had fights in the studio. It turned Jerry Springer on me, And then I've had the Courtney Loves, in front of her husband sitting on my lap trying to shove her tongue down my throat.
Oh, wow.
I've had it all. You name it.
Now, before I let you go, is there any way I could get you to record a liner for my show?
Of course.
Say, hey, this is Dave Pratt, and you're listening to Hoppe Hour with Ryan Hoppe.
Hey, everybody. This is Dave Pratt in Arizona, and you are listening to Hoppe Hour with my friend Ryan Hoppe.
Thank you, bro. Now, before I let you go, one more time, how can people hire you and how can they find your book?
So, Pratt Marketing Agency, for any businesses that want a great marketing agency, don't care if the business is in Arizona or anywhere in the nation. Pratt Marketing Agency, full service. We would love to take care of you. And as far as our book, Dave Pratt, Behind the Mic. The audio version is called Dave Pratt Beyond the Mic, and the audiobook is free as a gift to you. It's at starworldwidenetworks.com. I hope you enjoy it.
Now, Dave, it's been an absolute blast having you on the show, and I will be sure to promote this on my social media at Ryan Hoppe Radio.
Ryan, my best to you, and thank you so much for reaching out. It means a lot.
You are quite welcome, Dave. Thank you, sir.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right, bye. And that was Phoenix radio legend Dave Pratt, as he called in the Hoppe Hour. Now, if you want to hear more of my show, go to every single major platform that has a podcast and search up Hoppe Radio, Hoppe. I do two versions, one where I interview radio hosts and one where I kind of do a morning zoo type show where I talk about celebrity news. But anyway, check it out, Hoppe Radio on all podcasting platforms and at Ryan Hoppe Radio, RyanHoppe radio.com, and that's my username on all social media. This has been Hoppe Hour. I am your host, Ryan Hoppe, signing off. Goodbye now.
TikTok, clocks are juking, playing cruel pranks. Hoppe's hour almost done. Feels like robbery in banks. Ryan Hoppe on the mic, dropping wisdom in streams. Syndicated sorrow, now it's time to shatter dreams. Oh, the Hoppe Hour is coming to a close. Radio waves fading like a wilting rose. Laughter and joy dissolving in the air, but we'll keep the rhythm. Oh, life's just so unfair. But the laughter's growing dim. Eardrums mixing Hoppe like fingers without rings. DHX to FM, shoutouts hit the street, but soon the sound will vanish like shadows in the heat. Oh, the Hoppe Hour is coming to a close. Radio waves fading like a wilting rose. Laughter and joy dissolving in the air, but we'll keep the rhythm. Oh, life's just so unfair. Phone lines buzzing, but the laughter's growing dim. Eardrums mixing Hoppe like fingers without rings. DHX to FM, shoutouts hit the street, but soon the sound will vanish like shadows in the heat. Oh, the Hoppe Hour is coming to a close. Radio waves fading like a wilting rose. Laughter and joy dissolving in the air, but we'll keep the rhythm. Oh, life's just so unfair. Oh, life's just so unfair. Like clockwork to a show. Now it's time to face the silence like a TV on snow. Ryan Hoppe held the mic with humor so divine. The void left in our hearts wider than a canyon line. Empty speakers, silent time, but coming to an end like a roller coaster stopping round the river's bend. Hoppe's jokes and jabs, these are daily grind. Now silence louder than the thoughts we can't rewind. Oh, the Hoppe Hour is coming to a close. Radio waves fading like a wilting rose. Laughter and joy dissolving in the air, but we'll keep the rhythm. Oh, life's just so unfair. The Hoppe Hour is coming to a close. Radio waves fading like a wilting rose. Laughter and joy dissolving in the air, but we'll keep the rhythm. Oh, life's just so unfair.
Hoppe Hour. Hoppe Hour.
RyanHoppeRadio.com.
And like that, he's gone.
Whenever we're going outside, all I smell is poop.
I'll kick you in the nuts and we'll call it a day.
Hoppe Hour is now over.
Hoppe Hour is now over.
Game over. This concludes our broadcast day. Good night, and God bless America.
Doors closing.